Laurie Houts, a 25-year-old brilliant and committed computer engineer whose career was just gaining momentum, had plans on September 5, 1992 that would never come to fruition. In the silence of an autumn morning in Silicon Valley, where she had a bright future ahead, an unspoken drama unfolded. Laurie wanted to get some work done before meeting her boyfriend Brent Fulmer, who she's been dating for 5 weeks, but the meeting never took place. Their relationship, still in its early stages, was abruptly interrupted by a crime that not only sealed a personal fate, but also cast a long shadow over the community. Laurie's life met a tragic end in her car, found abandoned next to a landfill just a short drive from her workplace. A place that stood in stark contrast to the world in which she lived and worked. Inside the car, surrounded by the silent walls of her vehicle, Laurie was found, her life extinguished by a rope tightly placed around her neck. The traces of a fierce struggle were unmistakable, marked by her footprints on the windshield, pressed against the glass in desperation. It was a fight that showed Laurie's will to survive, yet ultimately in vain. The crime scene, far from Laurie's workplace, painted a grim picture of her final moments. Next to the vehicle, thrown over a fence, lay her handbag, untouched and apparently intended to simulate a robbery. But this detail quickly revealed itself as part of a staged scenario that raised more questions than it answered. The investigation revealed that Laurie had likely let the perpetrator into her car, indicating that she knew her attacker. This insight steered the investigation in a new direction, away from the assumption of a random assault to a crime that had sprung from the inner circle of her life. Back in 1992, investigators faced a puzzle, with few concrete pieces of evidence pointing to the perpetrator. The fingerprints found on the outside of the car led to suspicions, but without solid evidence directly linking someone to the crime, the case remained unsolved for years. This part of the story lays the foundation for what was to follow, showing how persistence and advances in forensic science would eventually bring light to the darkness of a case that had the community holding its breath for decades. Into this story steps Kevin Woodward, then 58 years old and head of Ready Tech, a company specializing in online training. He shared a living space with Brent Fulmer, who was Laurie's boyfriend at the time. This living arrangement formed a complex triangle, with Woodward quickly becoming the prime suspect in the murder case of Laurie Houts. Woodward came under the investigators' radar, not least because of his apparent jealousy of the relationship between Laurie and Brent. Despite the lack of direct evidence placing him at the crime scene, his fingerprints were found outside the car, but there was no proof that he was inside the vehicle. The suspicion remained. Woodward had no alibi for the night of the murder, and his responses to questioning only fueled the investigators' suspicions. The legal battle surrounding Kevin Woodward added another complex layer to the case. After being identified as the prime suspect in the murder case of Laurie Houts, he faced trial twice in the 1990s. Both trials ended without a definitive verdict. The juries were unable to reach a unanimous decision, known in legal language as a hung jury. These stalemates highlighted the difficulties arising from the evidence available at the time. The fingerprints of Woodward, found outside the car, were not enough to prove his presence in the vehicle and thus at the crime scene. After the second trial, which also ended in a deadlock, the case was dropped due to insufficient evidence. Woodward, whose life was deeply affected by the accusations and subsequent trials, then moved to the Netherlands. This move marked a provisional end to his direct involvement in the legal aftermath of the case, but left many questions unanswered for Laurie's family and friends, as well as the broader public. The trials at the time underscored the limits of forensic technology in the 1990s and the challenges faced by law enforcement authorities in presenting conclusive evidence. They also highlighted the emotional toll on all involved, particularly the victims' family members, who hoped for a conviction to find some measure of closure. Years after the original court proceedings, which brought no final clarification, the case of Laurie Houts experienced a crucial turn due to advances in forensic technology, especially DNA analysis. Nearly 3 decades after the murder, a new investigation was launched, ultimately leading to fresh insights. Thanks to developments in forensic science, investigators were able to reanalyze DNA traces on the rope used to strangle Laurie Houts. This analysis revealed a direct link between Woodward and the murder weapon, evidence not available in the original proceedings. Furthermore, investigators found a match between fibers on Woodward's clothing and those on the rope. These new pieces of evidence led to Woodward's rearrest, this time with significantly stronger evidence suggesting his involvement in Laurie Houts' murder. These developments mark a significant breakthrough in a case that had left many questions unanswered, and Laurie's family and friends without peace for years. The new findings not only offer the prospect of justice for Laurie Houts, but also underscore the importance of persistent investigative work and the value of advanced forensic methods. The case of Laurie Houts impressively shows how technological progress and the perseverance of investigators can help to shed light on the darkness of old, unsolved cases, possibly bringing justice to the victims' families after many years of waiting. Thank you for staying until the end. What do you think of the case? Please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more true crime stories.